Hi, I'm Alice. I am a primary school teacher. I'm also the co-founder of Grow Your Mind, and I am actually hiding at the moment away from my three children and my husband. I've lied and told them I've gone for a walk, where in fact I've snuck away. And we're fortunate enough to live in some group of flats that has a shared little office area. So I'm hiding in there so that no one comes in and interrupts me. And this may sound like a familiar scene for some of you. It won't be an office that you're hiding away at. It might be a cupboard or a bedroom. Um, and I guess it's speaking of the times that we find ourselves in. And so the first place that I wanted to start is two of my three children are school aged, and seeing the way that the school has quickly offered up online learning at a time when teachers and school staff would be going through enormous amounts of stress has been nothing short of remarkable. And I wanted to say a deep, deep thank you. And I am fortunate enough to work across many schools, and I have watched teachers adapt and upskill and provide engaging learning content in a very short amount of time. And so from the bottom of my heart, a huge thank you. I also think it's time for a bit of celebration in terms of acknowledging what you've been able to do. I, for one, had no idea about Zoom a few weeks ago. Now I feel like a Zoom master. I didn't know how to do invitations like this one. And I know that teachers all around the world are currently upskilling, and I think you should celebrate the fact that you've had to learn an enormous amount in such a small amount of time. Now, we all are sharing at the moment a common enemy, that being COVID-19. And I think what's kind of cool is that which has come to isolate us unites us. It is our common enemy. I think it's really important, before I offer up a tiny invitation for teacher wellbeing, and really it's just one piece of the puzzle, but I'm really into this piece that I'm going to be offering up, is I want to first say to you to make sure that you acknowledge wherever you are at with this COVID-19, whatever feelings you might be having are completely valid. And while that may sound so obvious, I am very guilty of trying to bypass anger and anxiety and fear and sadness and go straight to joy. And this workshop is actually about joy. And I just want to really make sure that you are feeling free enough and guilt-free enough to acknowledge the fact that you might be going through a bit of grief right now, or a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, and to make sure that you own those feelings and name them. When we name them, it does not give them power. It actually reduces their power significantly. So yeah, that's the first place that I want to start at, is naming your feelings. For me, I actually have been going through a bit of grief, and it hasn't been grief that I haven't been able to go to the local cafe or even hug people, hug people outside of my family, all the things that I love to do. For me, for the last few weeks, I have heard people talk about the fact that this is an opportunity to slow down and to knit and to connect and to make bread and to return to the garden. And I have not felt like that at all. I have felt that I have been massively rushing and trying to be of benefit to students and to teachers. And if anything, with my own family, we've never eaten so much frozen food and takeaway food. And so I had to acknowledge the fact that I was breathing potentially the slow down wave that everyone else around me seemed to be on, bar teachers. So for teachers, I think potentially that's something you've also felt, that this hasn't necessarily been the time of really winding back a notch. And I guess what I wanted to share with you was this great analogy that my dear friend Lizzie shared with me, Lizzie Kirby. She said, right now you're just on a different wave, and being on the wave that you're on. And the wave that I've been on has been one of trying to create and upskill with these little videos, and that my wave is not on the go slow one just yet, and then that's okay. So when we usually run Teacher Wellbeing, it goes for 2 hours. I'm hoping to do this within 10 minutes because I really don't want to steal too much of your time. And as always, I just want it to be about planting seeds. So I've planted the seed of acknowledging your feelings. The other one is, though, really to charge forward in this time of COVID-19, not quite sure about where it's going or what our teaching will look like, to keep in mind that you need to take care of yourself. And I always give the analogy of when you're on a plane and it's an emergency and you're told that you need to put your oxygen mask on so that before you put that of a child's on. That's so you can be of benefit and help them. And the same applies here, whether you be a teacher, whether you be a parent as well, you need to be making sure that you're filling your cup so you can be of benefit to others. So the question, how to take care of your mental health in this current environment. So a seed that I want to plant is that the stress that we're going to be facing is inevitable. And in fact, stress is an everyday part of life, but we can buffer against the really harmful effects of it. So if you think about our Take Care of Your Mind posts, if you're not familiar with our program, essentially we reclaim the term mental health. Everyone has it, therefore everyone can look after it. And so we offer up various invitations for people to kind of try out. Now, the one today that I want to focus on is do something that brings you joy. Joy, why joy? I just feel like joy is such a delightful thing to try and cultivate every day. As opposed to chasing happiness, it can be really just trying to create a micro moment of something that really fills your cup. That joy is that sort of electrifying feeling. It's often associated with awe as well, just stopping and being mindful and aware of something. So let's talk about joy a little bit, because we get it from so many different sources. You might be a cat lover, so just being in the presence of your cat brings on joy. For me, it will always be being with my dog. It might be a fantastic book that you're reading and really delighting in it and feeling the fact that this is a joyful moment. Perhaps it's for you, it's sitting down and drinking tea and savouring that moment, delighting in chocolate, singing in the shower, kicking a ball. Maybe it's art and being really creative and drawing and doodling and listening to podcasts and audiobooks and riding your bike, doing a handstand, dancing in the kitchen or wherever it might be. Perhaps the big thing that brings you joy is being kind, saying hello to others. And, we can do this. Even with social distancing, we can shout hello at people across the street. And it's my mission, while we're still allowed to move our body, and when I run, I try and say hello to as many people as I can while keeping a big distance between us. Now, something that might bring you joy that I've recently learned about these two terms and haven't really been able to articulate them before. I'm reading Julia Baird's book, Phosphorescence, and it's on awe and wonder and joy. It's gorgeous. And she refers to the joy we get from delighting in other people's successes. And she talks about the Buddhist phrase. The Buddhists have this phrase, mudita, and also in the Jewish culture, they have a term called nachas, and basically they mean delighting in other people's success and when they really achieve things or do well in things. And there's this photo here, and it has always stayed with me. That's my daughter, probably a good year or so ago. But what I love about this photo is that's my son cheering her on. And he really has this in him where he delights in other people's successes, which I think is a beautiful thing. So if that's something that brings you joy, then just acknowledging the fact that you're someone that really delights when other people do well. Perhaps it's poems that bring you joy. This Mary Oliver poem, The Summer's Day, but there's ones about the dog and the moon. But everyone would be familiar probably with this line, tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. Just thinking about that line brings on joy. Maybe you're an ocean person, and while you may not be able to swim in it, just the thought of the ocean might bring on joy. Now, from the book Julia Baird, she actually wrote an article a couple of years ago that's always stayed with me, and she says in it, small amounts of joy can inoculate against the hard times. So if you think about inoculating, that's treating with a vaccine to produce immunity against a disease. If you think about anxiety and fear, while they're not necessarily diseases, I like this idea of when they weigh you down for a very long period of time, that joy could act as a way to potentially buffer against those really negative effects. Now, I want to touch on nature And while we might be in a time of social isolation and minimizing how much we can get outside, even looking at a tree can bring on joy and can have incredible health benefits for us, both physically and mentally. So perhaps that's your thing that you're always going to do every day. There was a really interesting study in a hospital where they found that patients that had a view of nature actually asked for pain relief less than those who had a view of, say, a brick wall. The same applied with inmates in a prison. If they were able to look out onto some green space, then their physical and mental health was stronger. So that's quite remarkable. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson talks about what joy and positive emotions do to us in terms of mental health. So she has this wonderful analogy of the lily in the morning, and she talks about the fact that before the sun hits it, its worldview is very narrow. It's just here in front. And then as the sun hits it, and the sun in the analogy represents positive emotions, in particular joy, its petals open up and its whole worldview opens up. And so you think about the gift of perspective at a time like this, and making sure that we're getting our dose of positive emotions like joy so that we have perspective, so that we're able to be resilient. Now, what I love about joy is even thinking about it can bring on the health benefits. So I'll give you an example. These 4 women, this is from a trip that we took to Bali, and I can look at this photo and feel joy and feel a bit giggly too at some of the things that had happened that day and what they're doing right now. Now, I'm not able to touch them in this way right now. I'm obviously not able to be in Bali right now, but I can feel the benefits of joy just by looking at these gorgeous people in my life. And I can also stop and just think about, well, the things that really bring me joy. My lovely friend Lizzie, who I made reference to, hearing her sing, camping, surfing, being with my dog, bushwalking. I may not be able to do all these things, but just thinking about them and really kind of meditating on them brings on joy. So my first invitation for you to sort of pause this right now is just write down right now 5 things that bring you joy. So I'll do this action. That means pause it. And this action means it's back on again. So have a look at that list and just try and make that happen. Now, if on your list are things that you can't do right now, maybe just circle them and put a replacement next to them for what you can do right now that brings you joy. A dear teacher that used to teach both my son and daughter shared that her grandmother had a book of joy. So we're big on gratitude, but I love this idea of having a book of joy and recording what brought you joy that day. I saw this on social media and I really liked it. So a big thank you to the Counselling Teacher organisation. It's this idea of what we can and can't control. Now, I think this is really interesting because I would love to invite you to let go of control. And wouldn't it be handy to be Buddhist right now with this really strong inbuilt idea of impermanence? I think it's really hard for our culture to let go of control. I'm basically, it's impossible for me to let go of control. So instead, maybe it's about shifting your focus onto what you actually can control and truly letting go of what you can't control, even though some would argue that nothing, you can't control anything. I do think in our Western culture, we want to have something we can control, so maybe just owning it. So in this one, it's I can control my positive attitude, turning off the news, finding fun things to do at home, and outside of it, the things I can't control, the amount of toilet paper at the store, how others react, other people's motives. So again, I'm going to invite you to pause it and to do your circle. I'll share my circle. So in my circle, sorry about the tiny writing, but in my circle, the things that I can control are moving my body, speaking to friends that lift me, daily acts of kindness and generosity, pausing and patting my dog, reading with my kids, cuddling my husband, driving past my parents' place and having a chat from a safe distance, looking at trees, looking at photos of trips and people I love, creating things, movies, songs, ideas, all very, not in a very professional way, but it brings me a lot of joy, practicing gratitude, limiting social media and news and how I choose to react. And outside are all the things I can't control. I can't control other people's fears and other people's anxiety, other people's opinions, other people's words. I can't control Donald Trump. I've just got to let go of that. And I can't control the fact that Jacinda Ardern is not our Prime Minister. as much as I would love to control that, I can't. So pause and do your circle of what you can control and can't control. Okay, the next invitation that I want to put forward to there is actually on the bottom of my circle, which was this: how I choose to react. This can feel really tricky because we can feel such strong emotions, and they can feel quite stuck with how we then react. This is a page from one of my favorite books. It probably should be in What I Can Control, is Reading More Charlie McKeesey. This is one of his quotes: one of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things. Now, I'm going to follow that up with Dr. Brené Brown. She says she's speaking directly about COVID-19. We don't have to be scary when we are scared. Let's choose awkward, brave, and kind. Now, I'm going to share with you 2 strategies for trying to enable you to respond in a way that you really have chosen, not just reacting from anger or fear. One is breathing for coherence. If you've done the wellbeing course with us before, you might remember it. Essentially, you just think about someone that you love in this. Now, I have got a picture of my dog in it. This is because while I love my children and I love my husband, depending on the morning that we've had, thinking about them when I've got a heightened stress response happening might actually increase my stresses and my angry reaction. Whereas Bert, it's the most uncomplicated relationship I have. So it's very simple. You feel scared, you feel nervous, you place your hand on your chest. I invite you to do this with me. You close your eyes and you take a big breath in through your nose, big breath out through your mouth, and you think about someone you really love and the feelings that you have around that person or animal. And then a big breath in, and a big breath out. Another one is rain. And this is courtesy of the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction course that I was lucky enough to do a couple of years ago. And basically, it's just teaching you the steps involved in emotional regulation. R is recognizing that you're having a difficult experience, and allowing it is A. So that was that whole bit at the beginning when I talked about just acknowledge the feelings you're having. Investigating it in your body, where you're feeling it is in your hands, is in your heart. Have you got butterflies? Do you feel nauseous? Do you feel a kind of heat like rage? And then non-identifying with what is arising. So that's this whole idea of my anger is not me. I'm feeling angry. It doesn't mean I am anger. And the reason you'll see here, we have our beloved flower dude disguised as a lieutenant. And there's a lovely story that goes with this of a lieutenant who'd also done this course and was in a mad rush, but he actually went into the supermarket. He was a bit of a skeptic when it came to mindfulness, and he just had a few things to get. And he went to the part of the shopping centre where when you're checking out, it's 7 items or less, because he was in a rush. He was busy, and there was a woman in front with her baby, and she was passing it over to the other lady who was working there. And they were gooing and garring over the baby, kissing the baby and delighting in the baby. And he just was he felt rage, and he was about to react on that and tell them they were inconsiderate, and he was in a rush. And he noticed that, and he thought, I'm going to try this rain thing and see if it helps me, because I really feel like giving them a lecture. And so he went through this process. And by the time he got to I, he sort of thought, well, actually the baby's quite cute. The baby's quite sweet. And by N, he was over it. And then the baby left and the lady left, and he said to the woman behind the checkout, that baby was really cute. And she said, oh, do you think so? Oh, that's really kind. It's actually my baby. And my mum brings him every day. My husband was killed in service last year, and it's a ritual that we have. And I think what that story, it always stays with me, because I feel like it's that whole choice that we have to give people the benefit of the doubt, and to potentially try and assume that people are doing the best they can, and to choose kindness. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, says, we always teach little kids this, that, without mindfulness, it's like our feelings and our responses are stuck together. And he says, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So the final invitation, this is a speed course, is one on connection, which might seem strange at the moment. But essentially, This is a quote that I love. Eat your greens and exercise, yes, but don't forget to connect. Charlie McKeesy. Everyone is a bit scared, said the horse, but we are less scared together. What does that look like in a time where we can't necessarily physically touch? It looks like this. This is my beautiful 3-year-old having a conversation with my equally beautiful father. And this is a bit of a ritual that we have at the moment. Now, this may not be possible. Maybe soon we won't be able to do this. But aren't we lucky that we are living in a time where we can connect via Zoom? And just because we're socially distancing and physically distancing doesn't mean we can't connect and really make that effort with people on a day-to-day basis. And I guess I want to end on this one. Sometimes I feel lost, said the boy. Me too, said the mole. But we love you, and love brings you home. What a beautiful quote. So teachers, congratulations on surviving this very interesting period of time, and keep filling from your cup. And please just try and bring a bit of joy into your life, and let me know if any of this has been beneficial. Thanks so much.